Hey everybody, right before the show, wanted to let you know we have an update to our Patreon. A brand new monthly movie podcast is available now for $10 and up patrons at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. You want to hear me and Bob talk all about Mask of the Phantasm, the best Batman movie of all time? You can hear all about that in our long, almost 3 hours long podcast, patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
Cartoons from present in the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where we're all dumb babies. I'm your host, Cinema Bob Lover, Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today?
Henry Gilbert, and who makes pancakes out of potatoes?
I do, and who is on the line?
I'm Matthew J, and I'm not Jewish. I'm not really anything.
Today's episode is the Rugrats episode, a Rugrats Chanukah.
A Macababy's gonna do what a Macababy's gonna do.
Tommy killed so many Greeks.
Killed them all.
After that line. I'm glad they cut away. But yes, we are finally dipping into Rugrats, and I figured that because it is, I guess, maybe not, I wouldn't use the word secretly, but it is subtly a Jewish show and with Jewish characters. I figured we're doing a Christmas episode this month, why not do a Hanukkah episode? And Matthew did a Cartoons 101 video, I believe, about the Passover episode of Rugrats. Is that correct, Matthew?
I did it for Passover, but I did it about both specials.
Okay, it's been a while since I've seen that one.
I'm a big fan of both those specials. I growing up, I always liked the Passover one more because it's like a fantasy adventure. Like they tell the story of Passover through the babies. And then now as an adult watching them again, this one I love so much more because it's just like it's like a sitcom, but it's also like old Jewish comic guys like just ripping on each other the whole time. It's amazing this is a cartoon, so I like this one a lot more as a grown up.
I mean, ultimately this episode is about an infertile old man.
Yeah,
and how sad he is.
Yes.
Yeah, it should be mentioned at the start here. We are all Gentiles here.
True.
None of us are Jewish.
I grew up Catholic. Gross.
But we are like the dumb babies in the show being explained Hanukkah to us as well.
Wait a minute. Explain these pancakes to me. It's blowing my mind.
What's a Mirabelle?
That's made up, by the way. But yeah, Rugrats, extremely popular show. I think it was Nick's biggest show before SpongeBob. Really, it was.
Yes.
I mean, Ren and Stimpy was huge. Rugrats had more traction and had 3 movies and had just more content. This was their SpongeBob caliber hit. But I do want to ask you guys where you first encountered it. I think Henry and I will have the same story that we encountered it on August 11, 1991, watching the Nicktoons unveiling with Doug and Ren and Stimpy. I mean, that's basically event TV. It was big.
It was a huge deal for me as a kid. Nickelodeon advertised it so heavily, and Rugrats was my third favorite. I did like it, but I liked Doug and Ren and Stimpy more. Ren and Stimpy because it was crazy, and Doug because I am Doug, or was Doug, a dumb wiener who's too in his own head about things.
And you weren't a baby, though. But
yeah.
I think, Matthew, when this came out, you were a baby. Did you relate to it?
Yeah. In August 91, I had just turned 2 a month earlier.
Just like Chucky.
I was Chucky's age, so he was my favorite. I don't remember a time without the Rugrats being like Rugrats was probably my first favorite show. You know, like I remember as a kid catching it all the time and wanting to watch it. And I remember following the movie into like the retooled seasons, into the future reboot seasons all grown up. Like it was a part of my life for a long time. I think it's the weirdest of the Nicktoons because like it's a show about babies, but not really for babies, you know, like it's for like 3 to like 9. And I knew a lot of like teenagers who enjoyed it, you know, into it still going because we were like, it was like nostalgic. But like, I think like the pitch of the show is so crazy that it's not, you know, it predated Nick Jr., but like it seems like this is a show that can't exist any other way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like your comments about who the show is for because I feel like there's obviously, we'll talk about it soon, there's a lot of Simpsons DNA in this show.
Oh, yeah.
It was sort of Klasky Csupo making their own Simpsons before Duckman was their Simpsons, more Simpsony Simpsons show. But yeah, I remember when it first aired, it was also, they were also putting it on VH1 randomly.
To air in the evening time slot, kind of the Simpsons time slot of like 8 o'clock. Yeah.
And I guess the adults watching would just, they'd be there for, the little kid antics, but also to laugh at the yuppie parents, because a lot of this is about like over-parenting and parents being too concerned. This era of parenting, and now you can really look at this as parody of millennials, because all these kids are millennials, and Dee Dee and Stu are helicopter parents, and they're always talking about, Dr. Lipschitz says this, and they're always, they're just so over-concerned with their children's upbringing.
They can't do anything if Dr. Lipschitz didn't tell them to do it, and they're just overthinking it. And meanwhile, you have their boomer parents telling them, or the parents of them as boomers saying, like Lou Pickles saying, come on, just do this with the kids.
Yeah, so
just simplify.
A lot of generation gap jokes in there, but yeah, and I do think that the first 3 seasons are the best seasons of the show, and I think most people online would agree, and there are many reasons to go into that. But first, I want to talk about the history of the show. Just the total run of the show. So it ran from August 11th, 1991 to August 1, 2004, and that's 9 seasons, 173 episodes. It had a weird production schedule.
Yeah.
In that Nickelodeon, as with, Ren and Stimpy and Doug, they ordered a certain amount of episodes, and it was thought like, yeah, we'll make those, and that'll be it. And that's what they did with Doug. That's what they did with Ren and Stimpy. That's what they did with Rugrats. And it turns out the reruns were so popular, they decided to start production again, which they never did.
Yeah, they don't ever start back up production on stuff. When Doug was done.
Yeah.
Until he went to Disney.
And that's why at the time in 96, this was a big deal, because there were only, I think, 2 new episodes between 95 and 96, and that was Passover and Hanukkah. So I think those are both 96 episodes, actually.
Well, because they had the specials ready to go up. And I thought, at the time as a viewer, I thought those episodes meant that that's what Rugrats was going to become now, a show that just had holiday specials, but wouldn't have new episodes anymore.
And before the Passover of 96, when I believe that Passover episode aired, there was, so it wrapped up in 94. 1994, the 65th episode aired, and that was it. So in that 3-year span, that was it. So yeah, this was sort of like an event TV sort of thing, because it's like, oh, there's a new Rugrats? I've seen the first 65 a million times. So
I do remember that. They really, really leaned on like new Rugrat. Like the guy would scream that in commercials.
Well, I think because the way they pitched the show originally, they did write it for parents, and they had a smarter style to it, and they didn't realize that kids would really like it. And then as more kids came to like it, they definitely dumbed down the show more for their new kiddie audience, for sure.
It's true. So let's go into the production a little more. So talking about this show, we have to talk about Klasky Csupo, which we talked about a lot on Talking Simpsons, because Klasky Csupo animated the shorts and the first 3 seasons of the show, and I think they get a lot of shit in an unfair way. So basically, they started 2 Eastern European immigrants, Arlene Klasky and Gabor Csupo, and they started doing commercial work, like doing work for ad agencies and stuff like that. But I believe working with the Tracy Ullman Show, the Simpsons shorts were their first like regular sort of episodic TV. I mean, they were very short, but they were the ones doing that animation. Of course, 3 people were doing all the drawings, but they were being sent to Klasky Csupo for all like the labor.
Well, the people were working out of it, as we heard in our interviews with like Mark Kirkland and David Silverman. In the Klasky Csupo days, that was where the animators lived, even though Kirkland and Silverman weren't Klasky Csupo employees. They worked in the same place as all the other folks who were working on Rugrats at the same time.
And I think they get a lot of shit because the first 2 seasons of The Simpsons don't look that great. I think season 3 is a very, very good looking season. I would like to see what they would have done with season 4 of the show.
I've been watching season 3 again lately, and yeah, I've been saying that I've been watching it with a couple of friends of mine, and every time we talk about like, why do people complain about this? Like, we have the same conversation when every episode starts up.
And to be fair to them, they were doing something that no one had done before, and it took them a long time to figure out the process. It took them like 2 years before season 3 started, and it was like, oh, this is how you do this kind of TV animation. And it didn't help that Gracie Films had no idea how to work with animation.
And we're definitely mad at Gabor for being the one to tell them you can't do this. Jim Brooks doesn't like hearing that.
Yeah.
And it's something too that, like, I'd heard this on a podcast recently with an old television executive, comedy writer, who he talks about when you work in animation, you are giving up all this power to the animators if you're not an animator yourself. And that can cause a lot of friction. You're just like, oh, so you're executing my joke for me? I'm used to just an actor doing that, and I put the camera where I want it to be. And that can cause a lot of tension, especially when you're an Oscar-winning film director like James L. Brooks, and you have some weird guy from Hungary saying, no, you can't do that. No.
Yeah, I mean, we hear on the commentaries for The Simpsons that the producers and writers had to learn, like, they are not elves that make things. They are skilled workers, and it takes a lot of time to make animation. And if you read, so the uncensored oral history of The Simpsons, that book is not great, but it's actually pretty bad and not worth reading outside of a few anecdotes. But
yeah, I've read it like 3 times, and every time I'm like, why am I doing this again?
The story of Bob Cushell must be told. But you do hear Klasky Csupo's side of things, which I had not heard before, which is probably why James L. Brooks was like, nobody participate in this book. I don't want to look bad. But yeah, Gracie Films did not know how to work with animators or animation. Klasky Csupo was just, they did the shorts, so, they're going to do the show. Why not? And what happened was, again, the producers wanted changes to happen really late, expensive changes that Klasky Csupo would pay for, not the producers. They're being asked to pay for retakes and things like that. And they were being asked to do a lot more than they should have been asked to do. And that's why Gabor was not happy working with Gracie Films on The Simpsons, which is, I think, why it's like, no, let's just do our own show where we have control.
They also don't own The Simpsons
that too,
either.
Yeah.
So they're paid up front for their work on The Simpsons, but they'll never make any more money from it. But I think, too, that Gabor and Arlene and all the people under them realize that just being able to say, you're the studio that animates The Simpsons, that opens every door to every meeting in Hollywood in the early 90s. So they definitely made the most of it with their own shows. Like you said, Duckman and Rugrats both are them making their own Simpsons without it. And
Duckman, everyone is yellow, too.
And you talk, too, about the James L. Brooks thing. I think Gabor and Matt Groening actually were buddies as artists, like hippie artists who I read a story today I hadn't heard before that both Gabor and Matt Groening wanted Frank Zappa music on The Simpsons in the early years.
That's right.
But were blocked from doing it. So when Gabor got to do Duckman, he licensed Frank Zappa music for it for the first time on that show.
Oh, that makes
sense.
sense.
He licensed his son.
Yeah.
He cast his son.
Is it Ahmed Zappa or Dweezil?
Dweezil.
As
Dweezil.
Ajax, yeah.
When you guys were out here, did you go by their building, the Klasky Csupo building?
I don't think so.
No, it's a big ugly building though, or at least the old one was.
It is. It's that big gray square. They've over the years added all the characters are painted on it. So there's a bunch of Rugrats, no Duckman characters or As Told by Ginger characters, but all the Rugrats are on there, and also the characters from that pilot they tried to sell 12 years ago.
Which one?
Pilot. It's like the big one they tried that was it's still on their website when you go. I can't remember what it's called. It looks horrible. It's not the Bison late night TV host. It's
That's what I was thinking of.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's not that one. It's like two skateboarding teenage. It's not Rocket Power, but it looks like a Rocket
May
Power.
As well be.
But they're right on the front, and it's like, wow, you guys haven't done anything in a while, very clearly. But I think they're trying to, the rebooting Rugrats or whatever. I don't know how involved they are in that.
Can we be honest here that the Klasky Csupo art style is ugly?
Yes,
it's
but
bad.
It's cool ugly. I love.
I hate it. I hate it.
I have some arguments for and against it, and it works in certain contexts, and it doesn't work. I think it works on Duckman. I think Duckman is a very good-looking show.
Oh, that's through Eric Peck.
Yeah, it's true.
I think he is a very good character designer, and he softened the edges of that.
And babies are weird looking. Babies are weird little lumpy things, so it fits.
I don't like looking at babies, guys.
Okay, I am a huge fan of the show As Told by Ginger. I think that should be required view. I think what Big Mouth seems to be becoming for actual kids today, As Told by Ginger was and should still be. I think young tweens should be watching that show now the way that the way Dario was for our age. I think As Told by Ginger was for my age also. So
I was more of a Pepper Ann kind of guy. Actually, I did watch a lot of Pepper Ann when I was
I watched a ton of
way
Pepper
too
Ann.
old for Pepper
Oh man,
Ann.
we should do a Pepper Ann
It's
episode.
like
of
Girl
this show.
Doug.
I'm sure that time will come.
Yeah. We have Gabor Chupo, Arlene Klasky, the two main people behind Klasky Chupo. Now they're split up, but I guess Klasky Chupo is still a thing.
They're
an
still
entity.
professionally working
Yeah.
together. Yes. Yeah.
But the third member in this mix, and I believe the most important in terms of the soul of the show, is Paul Germain. And he was working with them, and he was working on the Simpsons shorts and things like that. And he was given the role of development director by them in 1989. And he developed a bunch of pitches for Nickelodeon's Vanessa Coffey. We've heard about her before. She was the woman who got Nicktoons off the ground and basically risked her career to put things like Ren and Stimpy on the air. And Klasky Chupo got their foot in the door immediately. Like, you did the Simpsons, you can come in and pitch. So none of the pitches worked, but the one sentence pitch for Rugrats worked on her, and she sort of just bought it without even thinking about it. So it's the idea that like these babies have a secret world and they're smarter than you think. And I think the existence of things like Look Who's Talking helped that idea make more sense to her.
The moment in the pilot that really did get the pilot is such an expertly done thing. It's a gorgeous thing.
Gorgeous.
And
Yeah.
the way that when the babies first talk in it is like, if you've never heard of Rugrats before and you're just watching it for the first time in 91, when the babies first talk, it was like, whoa, the babies talk in this show? That's what this show is? What the hell?
Are you talking about the 6-minute pilot or the first episode?
The first episode.
Okay, because
That was
that
my
pilot-
reaction.
Oh, I was thinking of the short. The
Yeah.
short is just
Oh.
incredible.
We could talk about that short. So yeah, the short pilot they made, after the accepted pitch was called Tommy Pickles and the Great White Thing. It's basically Tommy wants to flush the toilet, and it's the entire 6-minute short is about him wanting to flush the toilet. And I agree with you, Henry. This is an ugly show, but if you watch this short,
Charming, too.
it is not an ugly show if the characters are animated by Peter Chung.
Oh, okay.
Because Peter Chung, creator of Aeon Flux, did the storyboards for this short. He is essentially the director of this short. Peter Chung also did the animation for the and the storyboard for the intro to Rugrats, the opening song scene.
Wow, Aeon Flux and Rugrats have the same mastermind. That's crazy.
Yeah, if you look at some of the effects and some of the expressions and just some of the action, it is really Aeon Fluxy, and it's weird to think of them existing in the same world. But yeah, it's really good. But I think given that much attention and that much money and that short of a time period, like the characters look and move extremely good in that style. When it becomes an overseas thing and lots of TV production, it becomes a much more adulterated process where they can't get the quality control to what they want it to be, which is why these very complex looking characters don't move that well oftentimes.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. I appreciate that in a way that they made such complex looking characters against what you're used to of like decade before that. You see the Smurfs or the Care Bears or all these very easy to animate characters, and then you have just these weirdos with like extra lines and scraggly hair that goes everywhere. I mean, once they started making toys of them and you see them in 3 dimensions, you're just horrified. You're like, oh my god,
Tommy's giant head. But yeah, if you go so that short's online again, it's called Tommy Pickles and the Great White Thing. Go and pause and look at the animators that worked on it. There's like 20 animators. David Silverman's in there. Like
Whoa.
Swinton O. Scott III is in there from like Futurama and The Simpsons. You'll see so many Simpsons people and so many big names, and it looks so good. If you only watch one Rugrats thing, make it that, because it's just a fun, well animated short. Like some of the best stuff Klasky Chupo's ever done is in that short. But let's go back to Paul Germain. So he is the dude that pitched Rugrats to Vanessa Coffey, and he's also the brain of Rugrats. So he was there for the first 65 episodes, and then he's like, well, that was Rugrats, and now I'm going to go work for Disney because Disney poached him and Disney poached Jim Jenkins at the same time. So Jim Jenkins is the Doug creator, and they both went on to make shows for Disney's One Saturday Morning. Jim Jenkins just made more Doug. And Paul Germain made Recess, which Recess is a good show.
Yeah, it is.
No, it is a good show. And once I didn't know they had the same creator, but when I think about it, like Recess is also all about a secret world of kids and a secondary language. It is very much like kind of All Grown Up before All Grown Up becomes the thing. And though I like the art style of Recess a little
It's a lot
more.
better. I like it a lot. And I watched it in high school. Like I enjoyed
We
Recess.
were too old for Recess, but yeah, I did also watch it too.
But it was a very solid show. It had a movie in 2001. It was a big show for Disney.
Every time like a cartoon show of that period would get a movie like Hey Arnold or Recess, the way they would make it look like a movie is they just put shading on everything. Otherwise it looked exactly the same.
Just like one extra layer of movie style quality. But
Yeah.
I do want to point out that, so we talked about Paul Germain. He was a part of the Simpsons Tracy Ullman shorts. I think in the history of the Simpsons, Klasky Chupo is buried. No one wants to talk about them. And I think especially Paul Germain, reading about him, he was so instrumental in the early Simpsons, like hiring Klasky Csupo to work on the shorts, helping cast the voice actors, writing the shorts with Matt Groening. He was sort of the TV guy Matt Groening worked with. And actually, this is a callback to our David Silverman interview. We were asking David Silverman, who is Matt Groening strangling on TV in that one little scene? It is Paul Germain.
Oh, right.
That is Paul Germain. So it seems they didn't get along, but he was instrumental in getting The Simpsons on TV, off the ground, and into production. So Paul Germain, super important to the history of TV animation.
I mean, the history is written by the victors, and it's Gracie Film's story to tell on Simpsons history. They barely talk about Sam Simon as it is, let alone Klasky Csupo. I mean, the more credit you give to Klasky Csupo, you are kind of enriching an old person who worked with you that you maybe don't want to make more money if you're taking things rather personally, which I could see maybe Richard Sakai and James L. Brooks feeling that way.
Yeah, but I feel that he's great, and he was great for the show, and that's why the show got a lot worse and a lot more juvenile after
Rugrats.
the first. Rugrats got a lot more juvenile after that initial first 3 seasons of episodes, and I don't recognize post-Del canon. I'm sorry, people. I've lost friends because of this. I've actually never seen the movie either, but there's a lot more of the post-Germain era than there is before Germain.
Much more.
Yeah.
I mean, Dill sucks. He's just the poop machine, and it's like you already got Phil and Lil as the poop machine. You don't need him too. That was my feeling. And when I rewatched a lot of the old ones ahead of this, and they were a little smarter, and they definitely had a lot more jokes that were like that. One of my favorites I just watched was called Dummy Bear's Dinner.
I watched that one too. Yeah,
where they go to I don't know if you've seen that one recently.
Not since I was probably 20 years ago.
So Susie, their African-American friend who lives next door, they had established that the father, her dad, works on the Dummy Bears show. Which
okay, I remember this, yeah.
All the adults love, but the kids actually don't give a shit about. And so they find out that the creator of Dummy Bears is coming over to dinner, who I swear looks like a Matt Groening stand-in.
A bit, yeah, except he's got a toupee.
And so all these adults are just going like, I love your cartoon, oh my God. And I feel like that is Gabor writing about people barging into his house when Matt Groening is over to be like, Matt Groening, I love The Simpsons, you're the greatest.
That's a great way to look at it. Yeah, I love that episode, and it is about the adults. And I love just sort of there's more darkness to it and more of just a cynical nature where in the beginning, the Tommy and Susie are playing with a dummy bear toy, and the parents are like, isn't that so cute? They're so adorable. And you cut to the kids, they're like, oh, I can't pull this eyeball out.
Can't use this as a marble.
Yeah.
It sucks. And then too, the poor Angelica is just being used in a business strategy by her father to try to trick Matt Groening into buying more.
There's lots of jokes about yuppies. I love Angelica's like brutal mother, like savage mother.
Oh, yes, yeah.
She's always like arguing on the phone with her assistant, Jonathan.
Oh, Jonathan.
I think she awakened things in me as a child that I'm still exploring.
I want her to step on me.
I also like in that episode they explored more of Chucky's father's like sadness that he's dealing with. Like in that Dummy Bears dinner episode, he says, "You wouldn't really let anything bad happen to the Dummy Bears, would you?"
I do enjoy Chucky's dad. He's such a wiener.
Yeah, they canonically made him a widow. That's amazing for a kid's cartoon, especially at that time.
The next episode on Hulu after Hanukkah is the Mother's Day episode where they officially announce his dead mom.
I remember that airing. That was also a huge
Bummer
event.
town.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the voice actors before we start talking about the episode. So 3 of them are dead, unfortunately, and one of them is one of my favorites, and I just love listening to her in this because like her characters and her line readings are just so unique. Christine Cavanaugh also played Goslin on Darkwing Duck and Dexter on Dexter's Lab, 2 things we covered, and just she's so good. Even the worst lines, she makes them funny. She's so great.
Chucky is so lovable because of how good she is. That Chucky is just supposed to be the scared kid, and he's like, I don't know about this. Like, that's his whole thing. But he becomes so likable. You just want to hug him. Like, it's okay, Chucky. Yeah. Everything's safe. Don't be afraid. And that's all on Kavanaugh, making him that cool. And she also is Marty on The Critic.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Marty on The Critic. So Christine Cavanaugh plays Chucky. So R.I.P. also Jack Riley played Stu. I love his just flat voice. Stu has got a great voice.
His chocolate pudding speech, like,
I've lost control
of my life. That's so great.
Yeah.
That's a joke you wouldn't have in season 4 and onward. Of just like how I love that they got to show how unhappy Stu was, that he's like having to take care of the very spoiled child of his brother, and just like, Angelica, it's closed. I went everywhere, Angelica.
And there's a reason, like, millennials, we have, they always say, like, we have, like, the weirdest sense of humor, like meme culture and all that stuff. And, like, there's a reason that joke became a meme, because, like, I think we all identify with that greatly.
Yeah.
I've seen that so much, that pudding thing so much online on Twitter. So also David Doyle, R.I.P. He was an old man, but he played Grandpa Stu. Another great voice. He was replaced by Joe Lasky, who played Plucky Duck and did a very similar imitation of him.
He did a good
It
imitation.
was just pretty good, and now Joe Lasky's dead. So sorry,
Oh,
everybody.
geez.
Don't know who's going to play Grandpa Stu in this next one. Maybe he'll be dead. Also, E.G. Daily. So Pee Wee Herman's adorable girlfriend in Pee Wee's Big Adventure plays Tommy.
She's
so
very
great.
cute.
Yeah.
And she definitely ups her cuteness voice. It's almost in this episode, if when you think about it as them resuming production after a couple years, there are some lines in this that where Tommy and Grandpa Lou sound like they're the actors doing impressions of themselves.
Yeah, I bet I can hear that.
I think they kind of forgot what their voices were.
I guess more than a year had passed or something like that.
at least more than a year, I'd say.
So Kath Soucie, really good as Phil and Lil.
Really good.
Yeah, I just love her like weird kind of husky Phil voice, and just this really syrupy, fun Lil voice. But they're both like just little demented children.
They get to do all the gross jokes and they do horrible things. I like that about them. They get to be the receptacle for that. And it's funny that these two twin characters were existing at the same time as Charles and Mambo in
That's
Duckman
right.
too.
That's so right.
I always wonder if Gabor had twins or something, and that's what kept attracting him to putting twins in the show. I know Gabor, from my research, has 6 kids, 2 of them with Arlene Klasky, which they are different ages, so not twins. But I wonder if he has any twins.
That's a good point. But twins are fun characters.
We just had a little get together at Steve Yurko's house and watched all of the Clerks cartoon again. And Kath Sousie's all over that too. She's like the only like professional voice actor that they have on that show, except for
about that.
Kevin Michael Richardson.
Hopefully they taught Brian O'Halloran a couple of things about acting in that.
He played a good helicopter pilot that was gay.
I think everyone was gay on that show.
That's true. It's funny.
Wouldn't it be funny if these two men wanted to kiss? Hilarious.
And also Cheryl Chase as Angelica. I love Angelica.
So good.
Angelica is sort of like a woman in a film noir. In like every episode, she's always got a plan. She's always bossing people around. And I just love her. Like, get out of my way.
I love when she thinks of her plan. And then also, kids did need to see what a selfish, spoiled brat looks like and let you know this is the bad kid. You shouldn't be like this. And I also like that many episodes they had the moment of like, Tommy's finally got to stand up to Angelica, but I don't know if he can. And
I do like the relationship between Angelica and the babies. Like Chucky is terrified of her. Tommy is like anxious, but can stand up to her. Phil and Lil don't really care. They're just sort of existing.
Yeah, it's true. I like when they're pretty heartless to Angelica. Like, I don't care.
Yeah. But yeah, she is great. And I love the device that these episodes work through a lot, where it's like the babies don't understand something about the world, and they rely on Angelica, who understands a very little, but still has a very skewed perception of what is happening. So it's like the baby's trying to take her advice, but she's usually using that advice to take advantage of them in some way.
Yeah, she as the arbiter of information, she can then manipulate it as best as possible. And eventually at the end, they find out what the real truth is as they're like crying and having something explained by a parent to them. That also kind of changed things when Susie came into the show, because she was Angelica's age. So they kind of had a competition thing, like Susie could correct Angelica. Angelica would tell them misinformation, and then Susie would say, no, that's not right.
And Susie allied with the babies.
Yes, she was pro. I mean, Susie was one of those characters, I think they realized like, oh, it's just all white kids in this. We didn't really think about this. We really should have some person of color on this show.
They got better about that, I believe. So I think Chucky's dad married an Asian woman later. And then there was like, they had a mixed child in the show later.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Chucky's sister by marriage was an Asian girl.
Yeah.
I forget her name because again, like you, Bob, it's like post-ill, doesn't matter.
She doesn't exist.
They were better than everybody. That's what my video is about. Is like representation on the Rugrats. You know, representation for most other kinds of people was non-existent in kids animated television at the time, and they just but just the fact that Tommy's like half Jewish is like still incredibly unique on kids cartoon television. I think
That the main character would be that kind of never happens in show. It would at most be like their funky friend or something. And I mean, technically,
Their funky friend.
well, I was just thinking of Skeeter
Yeah.
and Doug, I suppose, but yeah, I mean, Doug technically was surrounded by tons of people of color. They were just like green and
Yeah.
blue. But
And it's kind of cool that but that's not the point of the show. You know, it's not like they're just like, yeah, different people exist all around us. It's not like we're going to celebrate this thing in this show. It's just like, no, just like this character is Jewish, that character is black, that character is Asian. You know, it's we're all getting together, we're all getting along. And I do like that instead of doing a Christmas special, they did one actually. But
Yes.
when there was time to do a special, they did Passover and then Hanukkah, which no one was really doing a Passover special.
Passover is the big holiday. Like
It's all about putting blood on your door.
we hear more about Hanukkah as Gentiles because it happens around the same time as Christmas and it gets advertised similarly. But Passover is the more important high holiday I have heard from Jewish people in my life. So it's good they started with Passover. Of course, Christians stole that one too. They're like, no, it's Easter.
What if this
is
had
Passover.
more chocolate?
I mean, I would rather eat chocolate eggs than the chocolate coins. I think they're just a little higher quality chocolate I've had of chocolate eggs over coins.
I have heard from Jewish people the gelt is not good.
I agree
Maybe
with Phil in this episode.
You could buy high quality gelt somewhere. Like, can you get like dark chocolate gelt, or does it have to be a certain quality?
real gold on it.
Yeah, live it up. So yeah, just to wrap up here, the history segment. So again, there have been 3 movies: Rugrats the movie, Rugrats in Paris, and the Wild Thornberrys crossover nobody wanted. Rugrats Go Wild, where Bruce
Starring
Willis.
Bruce Willis.
Yes. Please, Matthew, what happened in that? And what was Bruce Willis doing? I want
Bruce
you to
Willis
tell
was
us.
the dog.
Yes.
That's it. The Wild Thornberrys met the Rugrats because they own both properties is why, and then Bruce Willis played the dog. I don't know the events of the film because I never saw that. I saw the other 2 many times.
They went full circle and became Look Who's Talking Now.
They really did, yes.
Now, I have defended Classic Chupo's art style, but Henry, I'll say you're right about Wild Thornberrys. That main character is a demon. He's just like a hobgoblin. He's all nose.
Yes, no, the Tim Curry's character, yes. It's
Nigel.
He's rather freakish. I will say something, a positive on the Rugrats, what they did in the movies, and also in the Wild Thornberrys movies. They did have major status changes in them that had to be reflected in the show. On Rugrats, in the lead up to the movie, they started drawing Dee Dee pregnant.
Yeah, very smart.
And they start talking about things that are going to be in the film. Same with the lead up to going to Paris. You get to meet the bad new mom that Chucky's dad might end up with. And then in Wild Thornberrys as well, I believe they had a big change of like her sister finds out that she can talk to animals. So they did like doing status changes that then made the show have these clear change moments of like, well, this is the episode after the movie, this is the episode before, which a lot of shows didn't take that kind of risk. They like having the movies be in a much more isolated area.
That's very smart from just a creative standpoint and a business standpoint. Just like you're like led into the movie and then out of the movie into more TV shows.
You got to watch them all, kids.
So there was a spinoff that I never watched, All Grown Up, and that was 5 seasons and 55 episodes. And I guess they were true millennials living it up in the early 2000s.
It started as a fantasy pilot.
Yeah.
It was Rugrats had turned 10 years old and they said, what if the babies had aged in real time? What would they be like now? And so everybody resumes their characters. None of the grandparents are dead. They're just very old. But they're still
There's
there.
actually a joke about that in that backdoor pilot where there's like a photo of Grandpa and they're talking about, he was just old and it was his time. And then Grandpa walks in the room and it turns out they're talking about the dog and the dog is dead.
If only your father were here, but he's at work.
They had really good misdirect jokes on there. There was one where it was Lou moves out to live in a retirement place and they do these cuts of like it turns to fall, it turns to winter, it turns to spring, and then summer, and then back to fall. So you're supposed to think a whole year has passed. Then when Stu opens the door and his brother comes in, the brother goes, wow, it's been crazy weather this week. Oh my God.
I remembered the punchline of that joke as you got to the end. I was like, oh yeah, that is great. That is great.
That's a great gag.
Yeah. Well, to end this segment, Nickelodeon ordered 26 new episodes. I think that news came out in the summer. Paul Germain is involved. He's on board.
And a new movie, too.
And a new movie, which is going to be, I read, live action / CGI. Let's not do that. No.
Please, no.
I do want to kind of see photorealistic versions of those characters just walking around with real humans.
But I'm glad they're hiring back the originals to watch over it. I mean, everything now. Me and Bob just recorded yesterday next week's episode, Gargoyles. But this came up there too. This comes up on all these ones. All of this 90s stuff is up for grabs again because they are trying to sell this stuff to us. Are we going to sign up for Nick Splat? Maybe if there's new episodes of Rugrats on there. In Rocco's Modern Life, and same would we sign up for the Disney Plus thing? Well, what if there were new episodes of Gargoyles on there? We're being so marketed to, and it makes me feel flattered but old.
They're like, you're in your 30s. Give me your disposable income, buddy.
The joke's on you. I barely have any.
You ever go in that store, Box Lunch?
Oh, yeah.
I've gone on their website. I bought a Powerline shirt for my husband off there, which was really good, but I felt so condescended to on that website.
That's all that store is. That store is like, I imagine it's like, I think it's from the Hot Topic people, and I think it's like a Hot Topic you're not embarrassed to go into, but you're still embarrassed to go into it.
I mean, the name Hot Topic comes with a lot more embarrassment than Box Lunch. The Box Lunch will get there, though it's all the same target machine. I mean,
it really is.
Yeah.
So yeah, after this break, we'll get back to a Rugrats Hanukkah.
Hanukkah wouldn't go. Hey, what's up with this lucky pancake? It tastes like dried potatoes. My lucky. Hanukkah got me a cool dreidel. Give me it, that's my dreidel. Dreidel spinning, tummy's feeling weak. Pipe down, you babies, can't hear myself speak. Let's get out the dreidels. It's Hanukkah 8 nights in a row. Presents each night, must be living right. I'm wishing Hanukkah wouldn't go. Presents each night, must be living right. I'm wishing Hanukkah wouldn't go. Hanukkah 8 nights, we adore ya. We light the candles on the menorah. A present to unwrap, gee, this is sweet. I got a dolly, wow, that is neat. Let's get out the dreidels. It's Hanukkah 8 nights in a row. Presents each night, must be living right. I'm wishing Hanukkah wouldn't go. Presents each night, must be living right. I'm wishing Hanukkah wouldn't go. Don't eat the dreidels. My dreidel. Stop eating the dreidels.
This season, the First Kids Network is bringing you a special Rugrats adventure.
A Maca baby's gonna do what a Maca baby's gonna do.
It's the Rugrats Hanukkah special.
Harmonica. Hanukkah. You have to when you say it.
Join the Rugrats as they try to save Grandpa Boris from the meanie of Hanukkah.
That meanie is going down.
It's going to be a holiday celebration unlike any other. The Rugrats Hanukkah special, tonight at 8, 7 Central, in Snick.
Hey everybody, Henry Gilbert here, and I'm between eating a bunch of latkes and gelt to tell you thanks for listening to this week's episode of What a Cartoon, and happy Hanukkah to all those who celebrate it, whether animated or human. As always, thanks for listening, and this show is brought to you by patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Your support of the Talking Simpsons Network allows me and Bob the ability to do this full-time and get on cool guests like Matt J this week. And if you support at the $5 level, you can hear next week's episode right now. You can hear the Gargoyles podcast me and Bob did right now on Patreon. If you just sign up for $5 and you'll get it ad-free too. You won't be hearing this kind of commercial break with me. Not to mention, if you sign up at the $10 level, you'll get access to our brand new monthly What a Cartoon movie podcast. In the first month, we did Batman, Mask of the Phantasm, and we have an awesome movie planned for the second one this month in December. So please check all of that out at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons and support us today to help me and Bob keep doing awesome stuff. Also, if you'd like to watch Rugrats and a bunch of other classic Nicktoons, there's a great service you can sign up for, the streaming service Verve. That's VRV. Nick Splat is part of that, which includes a bunch of classic Rugrats cartoons like this one and a ton of other Nickelodeon cartoons. And not just that, but also the anime of Crunchyroll and a ton of exclusive series. There's so much that's on there. Check it out at Verve, and you can sign up for a 30-day free trial to see all of that by signing up at verve.co/whack. That's vrv.co/WAC. If you sign up there for a 30-day free trial, a little bit of money gets kicked back to your buddies at What a Cartoon, and it really helps us out. So please, if you're interested in checking out Verve and all the cool stuff that's on it, that's vrv.co/WAC. All right, enough of that. Let's spin the dreidel and get back to Rugrats Chanukah.
Stu, what are you doing?
Making chocolate pudding.
It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Why on earth are you making chocolate pudding?
Because I've lost control of my life. Here's your pudding, Angelica.
Oh, that's okay, Uncle Stu. I'm not hungry anymore.
So we're back, everybody. It's time to learn about Chanukah, but actually this episode is what a menorah is. I think I learned more about Judaism through The Critic, actually, than this episode of Rugrats. I mean, they try, and I think there's some authenticity there that I appreciate. So there's a new character in this episode called Shlomo, and he's played by Feibish Finkel, a legendary Yiddish theater actor. And I think you might remember him from being on picket fences in the 90s.
Yeah, and in the 2000s, he was on Boston Public.
That's right, yeah.
And but he's just a friendly old like vaudeville entertainer.
Yeah.
There was a documentary on Yiddish theater history where in it he does a full like classic performance of Yiddish theater that he had learned from the people before him. It was really sad when he passed away because he is a link to this tradition of Jewish theater that kind of died with him. I mean,
then that's his character in this is really funny then because it's about like two old men arguing over like a local theater thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
I never thought of it like that. Yeah.
No, I mean, at the end when he sings his song and the snapping, it's exactly what his Yiddish theater performance was in the video I watched of him recreating it.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Grandpa Boris, who is an existing character from the show, so Boris and Minka are Dee Dee's parents. They're Eastern European immigrants, of course, Klasky Chupo. They came from that world, drawing upon people they knew. Michael Bell does his voice as he does the voice of Drew and Chaz in the show. And, you know, he is a Jewish man, and I'm sure this is a very broad voice, a very broad character, but I think he is drawing upon people he knew perhaps growing up, because he is an older man. I think he's probably in his late 70s or early 80s by now.
Well, this episode is when we find out that Boris and Minka are specifically from Russia.
Yeah.
Which, as a kid, I loved American Tail, but I didn't really understand that it was about the Jews running from the pogroms and horrible things that happened in Russia.
Just look at the cute mouse, sweetie. It's fine.
Don't think about what those cats are doing to the mice off screen there. Just,
Mousekowitz is his last name.
Yeah. Them coming from Russia is similar story, though, based on Boris's age, he would have been more running from a different group of anti-Semites that were in power in Tsarist Russia beforehand, which, but I'm guessing that's where him and Shlomo and Minka Minka all moved away from.
Yeah, and I guess they all grew up together in the old country. But this episode ran into some issues with the Jewish Anti-Defamation League.
In general, Boris is an objectionable character. So there's a Rugrats comic strip, or there was, which I wasn't carried in my local newspaper. I would have read it every day.
It was by Nickelodeon.
I used to read it. Yeah, that's what the credit was.
And so when Boris appeared in it, without context, to somebody just looking at that comic for the first time, the ADL felt it was a terrible stereotype of what an old Jewish man would look like. Same with Minka as a caricature of an old Jewish woman, which it's kind of falling into like, that's just the style of Rugrats in general, is caricatures of people. Like Dee Dee's hair isn't hair a real human has, but it's a kind of a parody of what yuppie fancy hair would be. And same with the long noses on pretty much everybody. But when you see Boris and Minka by themselves, they maybe do look like an anti-Semitic caricature if you're looking for that kind of thing.
I read that it was this episode that upset them, and then the boss of Nickelodeon at the time, who was Jewish, was like, that's not our intent. That's not what we were going for. Here's the history of the creators. And then him showing up in the comic strip is what made them act.
Was okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I understand.
Yeah, and they had a new boss at Nickelodeon by that point who also was Jewish, but didn't agree with them. They're also based on apparently, I read this from some source that they're based on Arlene Klasky's parents, and that was her defense. It's like, no, my parents look like this.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think it's like Boris looks like a scheming Jewish character in like a German newspaper, but like a lot of old men have really big noses, and if you look what Five Schfinkel looks like, he looks more like Boris than the character he plays. He just got a big old honker. I've got a big nose too. I'm not Jewish, but you can just have a big nose sometimes. It's okay.
Well, Lou Pickles has a big nose also, but just in a different way. But yeah,
I understand how you could, without the context in seeing this character, you'd be like, well, they're being racist, not knowing who Gabor Chupo is, not knowing who Arlene Klasky is, and not knowing that this is suddenly a Jewish show.
Well, and Stu's interest in Tommy's Jewish heritage and his wife being Jewish, like that is just Stu is Gabor and Dee Dee is Arlene. Like that's their relationship informed in the show. And I think from the minute you see, if you know anything about Jewish culture, the second you meet Dee Dee's parents, you know they're supposed to be an older Jewish couple.
Oh yeah.
Though they aren't outwardly, like they don't say we are Jews until the Passover episode, really. Like they are on the Christmas vacation in the Santa episode. And I think there's like, it's a free vacation, but they don't give a shit about this Christmas bullshit. They were always meant to be Jewish. Like that was Gabor talking about his relatives. And
when I was a kid, like I didn't know any of this stuff. They didn't teach it to us. Like no other cartoon was telling me the story of Hanukkah or the story of Passover. And I was so fascinated by that because I knew like Hanukkah was a thing, but I didn't know like what it was about. And it's like such a cooler story than we get. A baby was born. Who gives a shit? I want to hear about that oil that burns, baby.
Oil is better than babies. This episode opens with, so there's a bit of the babies in Bible times, but as I think Henry pointed out earlier, maybe I did, like this story is like any Bible story. Yeah, it turns bad pretty quick.
Yeah, so this in general is the problem with animating religious stories because no matter what religion, this is a pan-religion statement.
I'm sorry, I meant the Torah. They're in Torah times.
But if you are telling the story of what happened from the books, you can't change it because you're doing this to tell that story from the book, so you can't change what happens in them. But what happens in them are grisly shit that you could never get away with showing people if it wasn't related to religion. And especially like to tell the story of the Maccabees ejecting the Greeks from Israel, that involves war and death and destruction. And that's why they smartly in this show just stop reading the book at that point and they'll resume later after the war has happened.
And when they go back to the book, they just flip past all of the horror.
I mean, as a kid, and I'd see, the Christian cartoons of this stuff too, they do have to show Jesus being crucified. Like that's kind of the whole point of it. But it's horrifying to see that kind of violence in an animation when you're used to nice animation that won't even show Popeye punching people anymore as a kid. So it's quite a shock. And actually, there's a really interesting kind of similar to this thing. I was telling you about this, Bob, beforehand. So there was this animated feature film in 2002 called Muhammad, the Last Prophet, which is kind of what if Disney made a film about the Quran, and it's similar to the Prince of Egypt. It's rather similar to Prince of Egypt from DreamWorks about Moses, but this is about Muhammad and his how his church was founded. And it is directed by Richard Rich, who was the director of Fox and the Hound, Black Cauldron, Swan Princess, a major name. And it's a really interesting movie. It's just free on YouTube. You can watch it if you want. They have similar problems too, where they have to tell this story, but per the rules of the religion they are respecting, and to tell the story, Muhammad cannot appear, and the first 4 caliphs cannot appear either. So, or speak. So they imagine being told, tell this very important story as respectfully as possible and show none of the main characters in it. Do that.
That's incredible.
It's amazing that they pulled it off at all. It's an interesting movie, I will say that. So it just it reminded me, the Rugrats having to deal with drawing babies, picking up swords and shields and running into battle feels like the same kind of
weird
friction that they have to deal with in any kind of kids' religious entertainment.
This episode opens with the story of Hanukkah, the beginning in which the Greek people are cracking down on the Jewish people and their traditions.
From now on, King Antiochus says you have to wear what he wears and read what he reads.
Look, Tommy, a whole book about Plato.
You also have to worship his gods.
Hey, this ain't so bad.
Some people thought this new way of life was fine.
Hail Lillian. Hail Philistine.
But others didn't.
I don't like this, Tommy. If that new king catches us with our old books, we're gonna get in a lot of trouble. I don't care, Chucky. These are the books our forefathers read, and our 5 fathers, and our 6 fathers, and I'm not stopping now.
And they're just like pop-up books. It's all Rugrats jokes. You know what they are.
Yeah. Though I was thinking of the please Noah, save us.
No.
From The Simpsons.
But it is fun. Like, it is funny. They're doing a lot of cute jokes where it's just like, Angelica's worshiping the Cynthia idol, and like there's instead of Plato, he thinks it's a book about Plato, but it's also like, and you gotta worship his gods. Oh no, Tommy, I like my god.
Yeah, they kind of never say God in this either, which is just really weird.
Yeah, it is odd. I mean, I guess they can only get so religious. And I was thinking about this. I talked about this with Henry. Like, this feels more important than ever now that there always were Nazis, but now they're everywhere. And just having this celebration of Judaism and Hanukkah is like, watching it feels like edgy and cool. Like, wow, they're out there doing this. They didn't even care.
I feel like executives at places would be like, ooh, it's a little tough right now. Maybe we don't talk about this. Yeah.
Just like how everyone on Seinfeld is secretly Jewish, but they never talk about it. But this episode starts off with a lot of talking about, they think they mainly describe like tradition and food and behaviors more than they want to talk about the religion itself.
It's more of a cultural holiday than a religious one, though. I mean, that might be the life that like Arlene Klasky / Dee Dee lived.
Yeah.
Of being culturally Jewish, but not really going to synagogue all the time. Like I've known a lot of Jews like that in my life who are more culturally Jewish than they are a practicing religious person. I'm reminded of Mike Reese in his book. He joked about how like while he is ethnically Jewish, he is a big non-believer, and he says he'll eat a ham sandwich in a synagogue on a high holiday. Like he doesn't care.
That sounds like Mike Reese. But yeah, so Hanukkah is an oil-based holiday, by the way. Very, very oily. And
you don't want to go for the water-based holidays.
No. Not as fun. Not as filling either. And a lot of this beginning part is about latkes, which are fucking delicious. I'm thinking about eating them now. I love potato pancakes.
I still think of Angelica saying a tapedo all the time.
A tapedo. Angelica should know what potato is, right, Henry?
That drives me crazy. She should be smarter. She should know that.
But yeah, Minka's helping Dee Dee make latkes, and Dee Dee's explaining to like Charles, this is also a dumb baby. Like, Judaism, what's that? It's like, Charles, you're 40 years old.
You're 40 years old. How could you be this sheltered?
How long have you known us?
Yeah, also, he's known them for this long. How could he? I mean, Charles is pretty stupid. kid in the show.
He's got a lot of allergies. He doesn't go out much.
That is true. I think I'm allergic to potatoes. But yeah, this basically, we're going to hear more about the oil soon, but it's like, yeah, we cook a lot of things in oil because the oil is very important. You know, the one day of oil lasted 8 days. It's what Hanukkah's all about.
I like them joking about this stuff has clogged our people's arteries for generations.
But yeah, like I never hear about the donut part of Hanukkah, though. That sounds pretty cool.
I had not heard of those donuts before, too, until Dee Dee she's playing the nice explainer of culture to them, of this, which gets replicated in the Kwanzaa episode as well, except it's Susie's family doing the friendly explaining to the outsiders about this stuff.
I forgot there was one of those.
What's Kwanzaa, I think it's called, or something like that.
Okay, it's not What the Hell is Kwanzaa from the Futurama episode.
It's rather similar to that.
But so in our first bit of plot in this episode, we see Grandpa Boris being mad about his rival, Shlomo.
Oh, look, Boris, your play made the front page. Synagogue Seniors Stage Meeting of Hanukkah.
Wonderful! They took my picture for this. I gewalt! They used Shlomo's picture instead of mine!
What's a Shlomo?
He's an old friend of Boris from his school days back in Russia.
What friend? Ever since we were young, he always tried to outdo me. I caught a smelt, he caught a sturgeon. I caught a cold, he caught a pneumonia. I start a family, he starts his fancy schmancy business.
Now, Dad, save your breath, Tiddle. If Shlomo and Boris make it through tonight's performance without killing each other, that will be the miracle of Hanukkah.
I really feel like Michael Bell's voice is coming from a real place. Like, you've heard that sort of voice used broadly for lots of characters in animation and in, like, you know, characters in movies and stuff, but it feels like it's coming from a place of authenticity, especially when he's acting next to Fibish Finkel. It doesn't feel like a guy doing a voice, really.
He's just so tired and breathy.
Yeah.
It does have a legitimacy that you sometimes don't see when you have a young actor playing an old person in an animated series, and then they cast an actual old person to play contemporary of that old character. You can sometimes feel very fake of like, well, you're not as old as this person is. Though another of my favorite casting things, they had some really good guest stars in Rugrats. I believe they had Debbie Reynolds play Miriam, Lou's old cousin.
That's right.
Who is basically the Angelica of his childhood, too.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, Debbie, what was it again? Debbie Reynolds.
Debbie Reynolds,
yeah, that's right. So we hear more about the Hanukkah traditions. They're playing with dreidels. We don't really learn about like what dreidels are. This is a droodle.
I know what the winning side is now, and I know that you made them out of clay. They had that line earlier where Tommy's going like, we made them out of clay.
And eating gelt, and Phil says they don't taste as good as the coins under the couch.
That's a funny joke.
That
I
is
like
good.
that.
Yeah, I like when there are jokes about just like the Phil being like little dirt babies.
Yes.
Like just get like all of the unspoken things they do that just come up in their dialogue. It's always fun. Like, what are they doing?
They're always walking around covered in shit. They're just
and then we get a lot of confusion over pancakes for dinner. Like a lot of characters are losing their minds over pancakes for dinner. In this.
Do they just never have hash browns before?
I guess not.
Though I would rather have some donuts than hash browns or latkes. If I had to pick, I'm going with donuts.
Donuts are good. But so Tommy's trying to figure out the menorah. We get a bit of the holiday through his, baby eyes. And it's just like, every night my grandpa lights a candle and he reads this thing I don't understand. I get a present. I like how Chucky says, that sounds scary.
I love their logic of like, maybe it's your birthday. Maybe they're just getting through all your birthdays and you're a grown up now.
And because of that, he tries to, there's lots of like baby pyramids in this series, lots of climbing up babies, but he tries to climb up the babies to blow out the candles. And this is when Angelica explains what Hanukkah is.
Hey, be nice, Angelica. It's Tommy's birthday. Yeah, we were blowing out his candles. Dumb babies. Those candles aren't for Tommy's birthday. Those are for Hanukkah. Harmonica? Hanukkah. You have to when you say it. Angelica, what's Hanukkah? Hanukkah is that special time of year between Christmas and Misgiving when all the bestest holiday shows are on TV. Now, get out of my way. It's almost time for the Cynthia Christmas Extravaganza Special.
I'm really on board with how secular Angelica is.
Oh, yeah. No, in this viewing of it, I really think that they wrote Angelica to represent the kid at home who's just complaining like, what's this Hanukkah crap? I want to see a Santa special. Quit playing this. I'm going to change it. If I could just find this remote, I'd change the channel right now to the Barbie Christmas special that's on the other channel.
I mean,
It
Angelica's.
works because of her waspy ass parents.
Yeah, I was going to say, oh my God, Matthew, you took the words out of my mouth. Her parents have no time for religion.
Certainly.
They're waspy yuppies.
They worship they worship the
Mammon?
dollar. Mammon, yes, yeah. No, they and Angelica doesn't give a crap either. It's same with like her family isn't Jewish. They probably have to be somewhat respectful in the like Ivanka Trump way of being respectful of Judaism.
Oh boy.
But yeah, no, I love how much Angelica doesn't care. The only thing she's interested in with like that it means it's when Christmas specials are on TV during Hanukkah. And I have heard from friends who are Jewish that the 8 nights of gifts, it really means you get one good gift and then just crap presents all the way until those gifts. Like just the little things, which I get it like budgetary wise. How are you going to give an awesome gift 8 nights in a week? That's too expensive. And we did time this podcast, by the way, for Hanukkah this year. On both the Patreon and on the free feed, this episode will be live when Hanukkah is happening.
Listen to it 8 times.
There was Thanksgiving a few years ago where
Thanksgiving?
Where Hanukkah lined up with Thanksgiving, and actually the lunar calendar
a lunar holiday.
Got that close to Thanksgiving and actually was a Thanksgiving.
You're not referencing the OC, Christmaka.
No one thinks of that show. That's for you're too young, making me think of the OC.
I was thinking of Christmas, Hana, Kwanzaa, wherever that came from.
What was that from?
I don't remember.
That was a commercial. It was was it Old Navy or the Gap or something like that?
Something like that. It's in my brain and I hate it.
I celebrate a tip top tet. That's what I do.
And a very solemn Ramadan.
Yeah.
But so Stu, I like Stu in this episode. He's trying to be supportive. He is the Gentile, and he is also like a mad inventor, as we see in other episodes. He's a toy inventor, and he's working on a prop, huge menorah prop for the play that explodes. And while he's busy putting out the fire, they're all heading out to the fair. I
love all this stuff with Stu.
Yeah.
Especially like Lou is just
ribbing him.
God, you suck. What a dumb kid I created. But also that Lou knows more about Judaism than him. And he's like, it's called a synagogue, Hanukkah boy.
I like how he calls him Hanukkah boy.
And I think though to Stu's comical overcompensation to create a garish monstrosity that celebrates Hanukkah, I think that is Gabor Chupo's own fears that this very special represents him overcompensating for the Judaism that he isn't. He's not Jewish.
And he better be careful driving that bomb with religious imagery all over him wherever he's going.
He's in trouble.
I didn't see that symbolism, Henry, but you could be right about that. Yeah,
I think so.
If Stu and Didi are their corollaries, this totally could work out.
They've said before that Tommy is based on their youngest son together. Though Paul Germain also said Tommy is his kid.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it can all be their kids.
All babies are the same.
Yeah, all hideous.
It takes a village, guys.
So yeah, Angelica is torn away from her Christmas specials, and as they leave for the play and the festival, we learn about the villain in this show here.
This play will be the end of me. Meaning of Hanukkah.
The meaning of Hanukkah. No wonder your grandpa doesn't want to play with him. I had to play with that meanie at daycare once. Oh, what happened? First he made me lick the slide, and then he hung me from the monkey bars, and then he put a worm on my head. Oh, you don't think he'll do that to my grandpa, do you? If it's a grown-up meanie, it'll be much worse than that, Tommy. Well, what happened to the meanie at daycare? The teacher came over and dug me out of the sand, and then she made us both take a nap. That's it, then. We've got to put the meanie of Chanukah down for a nap.
I love Christine Cavanaugh so much. He put a worm on my head. I can't even do it. It's so good. Every weird little like, so every abuse Chucky has suffered has like a new dramatic reading.
It's very hard to imitate. I feel bad for whoever is going to take over that role for the new episodes.
I mean, somebody did at some point in the series after she retired.
Just like with Dexter, which was very distracting on Dexter. I knew it wasn't her anymore. Also, when you see clips from the Cynthia Christmas special, and it's kind of fun to see what Cynthia is supposed to look like instead of Angelica's destroyed doll.
I forgot that is the joke. Angelica cut Cynthia's hair, and I just love the dead eyes on the Cynthia doll.
Yep, just staring off. And I think too they're making fun of bad holiday specials with Santa versus the aliens, though. Shouldn't that be Santa versus Reptar? This lacks any Reptar, which I feel like they missed a joke there.
Santa is fighting a very Reptar-style creature.
Do they just not want Reptar to be evil against Santa?
Maybe. He's like Gamera, right?
Yeah, he's friend to all children.
Yeah. We learned about the meaning of Hanukkah, which is Shlomo, and again, it's a fun misunderstanding. It's one of the baby manglings of words that makes sense.
There's a few in here that just drive me nuts.
That's somewhat clever. It's better than Cinema Bob, where they're going, which Tommy calls the synagogue. And we enter the synagogue. Angelica is disgusted by the potato pancakes, and she goes off to find a TV. And you know what? I don't understand this. They're so good. I love them so much.
I guess she just wasn't in the mood when she thinks it's going to be pancakes, and it's instead potatoes. But if they want to sell latkes to Gentile, blonde-haired Aryan kids like Angelica, then they need to show Angelica likes them.
Yeah.
And then she knocks over that dreidel guy, and he drops all his donuts. And I guess that's the winning side that he's on. That's why it's a cute joke where he says, I win.
It's cool that they don't actually explain it, it just is happening. I mean, the babies are playing with dreidels, but they don't say, well, here's how a dreidel works, here's how the game is played, here's what this winning side means. It's just sort of all context through the episode.
And the rabbi character we meet, that's another accomplished Jewish character actor.
Oh, really?
Ron Liebman.
Yes.
Ronald Liebman, who...
Is he married to...
Jessica Walter.
Wow, okay.
Yes, which is really great because they're such a cute couple. They did the Gilbert Gottfried podcast.
That's how I know about that.
Take a sip. We mentioned the Gilbert Gottfried podcast on here, but
I remember.
They're so cute together because they're just this old married couple who also lived through the 70s and knew everybody famous and did all the drugs with everybody else.
They're so in love.
They're so in love. And I didn't know who her husband was, though, until Ron Liebman played basically himself as Ron Cadillac, the husband of Archer's mom in the later seasons of Archer.
Okay, I have not seen many of the later seasons, so I didn't know Ron Liebman was in the show. That's cool.
Yeah, he's very funny. He's not as old on this episode as he is on Archer. He aged into even being more of a Jewish man, but a very fun guy. He's a great actor, and it was a more good casting of famous Jewish actors to play major characters like the rabbi in this episode.
So we see a cutaway to Stu, and he is stuck in a Christmas parade, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, that is pretty stupid.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good hair acting in this too. I like the hair stretches and moves with them.
There's a really cool shot from inside the car, like a really cool perspective shot. It's just like Grandpa's in the foreground and Stu's in the background. It's just very well done. I mean, the show is ugly, but there are some nice touches like that.
Actually, that's one of the biggest negatives of this episode to me is that, so they have to start with a storybook opening, but that means they can't do the typical Rugrats opening of a weird looking zoom in on a normal thing that then they zoom out
They
to
did
show
that a
you.
lot, yeah.
Yeah, but this one can't start that way. But they really played with perspective a lot in really smart ways. And, we didn't even talk about Mark Mothersbaugh.
That's right. Oh,
his
wow.
music gave so much character to the show from the opening on down. I think this was the first major show he was a composer of, and now he does everything. He just did Disenchantment.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he did something before this in terms of scoring, but this is the first time I really noticed him and noticing him doing TV scores. I'm sure he's done a lot of stuff since then. So in our next clip, we see the main conflict of this episode. It is Boris versus Shlomo, and also Angelica trying to find a damn TV.
So, where's your son-in-law, the brilliant inventor?
Hello, Shlomo. How's business?
Hello, Boris. How's the family?
How can we not have a TV? Hey, look, an entertaining center! Huh?
Ah, so you want to know more about the Torah?
Huh?
It's a very special book,
I'm sure it is. But speaking of specials, you wouldn't happen to have a...
Don't be shy. The Torah is almost 3,000 years old, and
I kind of like, so I mean, Rugrats did lose its edge a bit when Paul Germain left, but I like this a bit because in any other special, Angelica would be like, wow, what is the Torah? It's like, it's just like your TV shows. And then she'd sit down and she'd learn about it and then she'd learn something. But no, Angelica doesn't give a shit about Judaism through the entire episode. She doesn't care about religion in general. She's like, I want to watch my TV shows. I'm going to cry when the TV is broken. I like that Angelica can't learn a lesson.
In my youth, I was more Angelica than any of those other kids, too. When I was 3, if I knew there was a TV show that I was going to watch, that's all that matters. And no adults trying to teach me a lesson is more important than the TV show that I have to watch. If I'm going to miss the He-Man Christmas special, I'm going to throw a tantrum. So yeah, it's easier for me to identify with the spoiled, rotten Angelica kid, because that is, my parents were also yuppies that indulged too much on things.
You told your brother, get out of my way.
And, well, I definitely took things from him. They were like, this is mine. Screw you. Her chasing after that little TV, too. It's a nice little run. I'm more interested in that story than Boris and Shlomo.
I do love hearing two old men yell at each other, though. It's a lot of fun.
It's really cool. I do like that. You get to... Now, as an adult who can understand having 80 years of history with another person and that long of a rivalry, it's more interesting to me, especially that Boris thinks that Shlomo is showing off with his big business and being more successful than him, when really Shlomo is just sad that he never had a child and he's just going to die alone and very soon, too.
Right after this episode. So yes, Angelica on her chase for the TV is intercepted by the dreidel man who she tripped earlier, and in the play is going on. The babies see the meaning of Hanukkah and they rush the stage, and there's a dramatic act break as Dee Dee gasps.
There's a bad joke in this too, where Chucky says, "Look on the bright side," and then the lights turn off. He's like, "Oh, never mind." I'm like, that's not really a joke.
That's a fine. Come on, for a kid's cartoon about babies.
Fine.
That joke's fine.
No, this is the 17th. This has to be the 8 millionth time where Dee Dee has had to say, "I don't know what got into them." It's like, by now you need to have children on leashes. Like,
these children are demons.
They start making like self-referential jokes about that at a certain point. I think they're at the Ice Capades. There's one where Drew was like, "Oh no, they got out again."
Oh yeah. Well, there's a good joke like that too in this where they get fooled by Angelica and Chucky goes, "Man, who could have seen that coming?"
Yeah.
Like, this happens every time.
This is the 67th episode. So the Act 2 opens with all of the dumb babies and Angelica in the nursery being locked up.
What are you babies doing here? We were trying to save Grandpa Morris from the meaning of Hanukkah, but the grown-ups wouldn't let us. Yeah, we were just gonna put him down for a nap. Meaning of Hanukkah? You dumb babies! Have a really good idea. Really? Yeah, but you don't need blankies and stuff to put a grown-up down for a nap. You know what you need? Hoppity hop? No. A kangaroo? No. A raisin? No! The onlyest thing a grown-up needs is a TV. Huh? Don't you know every time Grandpa Lou puts on a TV, he goes right asleep? Hey, yeah. And I know right where you can find one.
Sinister music. You hear that? It's like, wah. It's like when the Joker shows up on the screen.
I love a sinister Angelica smile when you realize she's come up with a plan. She knows how she can exploit these dumb babies. And I always love her pronouncements of, "You stupid babies, you don't know anything." It's always funny.
It happens later, but I like when they break out. It's like the 90th time they've broken out. She's like, "That's it?"
And also her just frustration that Lil or Phil always has the stupidest line. She's like, "A raisin? No!"
So on the stage, the play is happening, and Boris accidentally cuts off Shlomo's pants. I think it was no accident.
No.
And they start fist fighting. But I like, if you look at this from a realistic perspective, like, what if you went to this play and these two old men start fist fighting on the stage? I want to be there. And it doesn't stop. They put the curtain in front of the stage. They're still fighting. Like, realistically, these two men would be dead.
I like that Minka just goes like, she just shrugs like, this was bound to happen. Though, as a kid, and it still kind of feels this way too, it is a little distracting to me that Minka and Dee Dee have the same voice, and they're not that different.
Yeah.
I think, that's just economy voice casting. You've got her there, have her do the mom's voice too.
I get it. Michael Bell does a lot of the male characters, but he actually can do a bit more with his voice.
Yeah, he has a little more range. Dee Dee, the voice actress for Dee Dee is great at what she does, but she doesn't have a ton of range. It's almost like hearing Yardley Smith or Jimmy Cavner do another Simpsons voice.
That's a good point. And so the old men are fighting. The curtain goes in front of the stage. They put the choir on to cover up the sounds of old men's bones shattering.
Five-ish Finkel is throwing in so much fun Yiddish in there. He calls him a Schmendrick.
Any words for penis? There's like 43 Yiddish words for penis.
Don't know if they can get away with that
putz.
one on there. Which we all learned from the critic as well.
Yeah. But backstage, they have a bit of a reconciliation and things get real between the old people.
All my life you're upstaging me.
Me? You're the one with the elders bragging. My children this and my grandchildren that. On and on.
You'd be proud of your children too if you had any. But now you were too busy with your fancy pants business deals.
Is that what you think?
That's what you said.
So sue me, I lied. Sadie and I, may she rest in peace, but never blessed my children. All I had was my fancy pants business, Mr. Know so much. So now you know. Here, I got no one to share our tradition with anyway.
Here, you be king.
Very sad. Old
I
man.
love that delivery of
Yeah.
you'll be king.
That's why I kept it in. We didn't need it in that clip, but I love that reading.
He's so just sad and defeated and full of regret, and just his statement of you'll be king. He didn't want to be it at all. He just hands it, and he feels so small and awful for reminding this guy. He's like, yeah, you're gonna die alone, not me. and the guy he hands it to is that side community theater over actor of I had a song prepared.
Yeah, it's kind of fun that he gets to come on and do his songs because there's no one else that can do this play. I guess
that guy's a great design too. Just something about his character design I love.
He's got a fun beard, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, Michael Bell, who we said this in the G.I. Joe episode too. He gives a lot more dimension to characters that no one needs for that, but he finds it. And same with Boris, who started off as just another cantankerous grandpa, Tommy's other cantankerous grandpa. You now get to see him bury the hatchet with this old friend of his, and just how defeated he sounds there. I just love that line so much. It's so good.
There's a lot of history in that line, in that delivery too.
Yeah,
I think.
And Five-ish brings a ton to it too. I love his so there you go, Mr. Know So Much.
Yeah,
he seems very real. Five-ish Finkel. I mean, he's just playing himself pretty much here as Shlomo. Except I don't know if he had kids. I don't know.
Drawing on real tragedy. too dark for the Rugrats. So the kids end up breaking into the janitor's office. They steal the TV. A Very Cynthia Christmas just comes on in time. Angelica runs backstage and right into Shlomo. TV breaks, and now he's dealing with all these kids, and he's never dealt with kids before.
I like Angelica throwing at Lil when she's like, "Hey, you're stepping on my soft spot. Your whole head is a soft spot."
Good riffing on a baby. That's what I want to do if a baby tries to throw some sass at me.
And Chucky is right. They're like, well, who could have seen that coming when she double crosses them? It happens every time. We're all childless here. I think we would all have Shlomo's reaction of oh my God, 5 babies. What the fuck do I do? Oh no.
I did sympathize with him in this moment, especially because Angelica's crying and then there are just other unattended children nearby.
Oy vey, more babies.
But Tommy has an idea for how to defeat the meanie of Hanukkah who they just ran into.
Hey guys, remember Grandpa Boris takes a nap when he hears a good story? Well, maybe the meanie will too. Oh, fine. Goodbye, cool world.
More babies. Quiet! What do you want from me?
Tamala, Shlomo, what's going on?
1 minute I'm trying to go home, and the next thing I'm up to my dentures in Kinderlach.
There, Tatala. Here, they want you to read a story. Come.
You're the grandfather, you read it.
No. He wants you.
I do love Phil's plan before that. He's like, I'm going to be a ghost. And then he just immediately smacks his head and falls down. Phil and Lil being stupid is still
They
fun.
are the dumb babies.
They are.
Tommy's a smart baby. So they flip past all the Hanukkah violence.
Yes.
And go on right to the story about those fun candles.
Hey, look, Tommy. It's that thingy from the top of your TV. Yeah, but it's all broke up. I didn't do it.
And the beautiful menorah, which was supposed to burn forever, was broken and its flame put out.
Shlomo, they don't know from menorahs.
A menorah is like the nightlight of our people. In times of darkness, it shines on the whole world, reminding us not to be afraid to be different, but to be proud who we are.
Hey, that's not bad, Cookie. You just make that up.
I'm winging it here. Give me a break.
There's several interesting lines in here that feel like they're not the lines a normal person would say, but when they're explaining something to outsiders, he says like, we put the oil in here and we light it up. Some people use candles. Of just him, a line like that is him saying there are different ways that people celebrate this, but all are valid. He's not making a judgment of like, yes, I think he's making it clear like, well, look, we're using oil in this scene here, but it's okay if you use candles. Candles work too.
I think I've only seen candles really in my life.
Oil seems a lot more dangerous.
It really
You don't
does.
want oil burning in your house for 8 days.
It's got to be a smell.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But you covered up with cooking potato pancakes.
That's the secret. Yeah. It is really weird to see through in the flashback the destroyed war machines throughout Israel and like the armies running away. You have to think like, oh, that's weird. Well, okay, I guess they must have fought all of them instead. Though there's a good little line about, I like Phil saying, hey, this looks even worse than our room. I don't know. I can see the floor.
That's very cute. So it all comes together when Stu delivers the menorah. It explodes. The curtain falls down, and we see the scene with the old men and the babies. And in the end, it is a very happy Hanukkah.
Shlomo Veran.
Oh my. And so ends our little play. And may it be our sincerest Hanukkah wish that our Kinderlach will continue to carry the light of our people for generations to come. Say the blessing.
Oh, right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Chanukah.
Look, Tommy. The baby and your grandpa Morris are playing nice. I know, Chucky. It's a miracle.
It's not a joke. Very cool.
That was it's a real touching ending. When they talk about miracles, though, they don't talk about God causing those miracles or any divine intervention. I believe the story is that it is through God's will that the oil lasts for 8 days. But
I was pointing out before, it's so cool that there's just like, hey, here's a prayer. You know, here's a Jewish prayer.
Just
Bam.
say it live right there and have Five-ish Finkel join in on it too, and then start singing his classic Yiddish theater stuff right there.
And in a way, I talked about earlier, like I said, the critic taught me more about Judaism. I like that they don't explain like, well, you see, the prayer means this and this word means this. It's just like, no, they're just doing it in the moment. This is just like, hey, look, some people don't, have Christian prayers, maybe.
I do wonder if they didn't get as explicit as they could have, be out of fear that they would get Christian groups mad that a show would be seen as trying to espouse Judaism to Christian kids. Like that maybe is why they would walk it back a little bit.
That's why in the new series, no one is religious.
We don't talk about that.
I really want to know from any listeners out there who happen to be Jewish, did you grow up with the show? Did this mean something to you, this kind of representation? And also, how is Michael Bell's pronunciation? I want to know.
Oh, you know what? Another thing I did like was their plan actually worked. Their plan was to put the meanie of Hanukkah to sleep.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
they do put him to sleep.
I totally missed that.
Yeah.
The show's too smart for me.
Well, like the Stu subplot completely gets lost in this thing, too.
Yeah. He's just there to take a curtain down, ultimately.
Yeah. And have another another monstrosity. And like by this time, Dee Dee, I think at first was like supportive of Stu's inventions, and by now she's like, oh my god. I wonder if that's
bad and sacrilegious.
I wonder if that reflects Arlene's own personal growing animosity towards Gabor that would lead to their divorce.
Oh, they're so happy together. So yeah, that was the Rugrats Hanukkah special. Not really representative of the Rugrats style of humor ultimately in the best way, but I feel like it is still like a cool, important show, the series in general. But this episode too, just they did 2 Jewish holiday specials, which is really cool.
Yeah, no animated series before it. There had been animated specials, but no animated series had done a Hanukkah episode in America, at least, before this show did it. So it was a trailblazer in that way, too. And I think it gave permission for more openly, like, diverse characters in shows to come, not just Jewish, but more religions beyond that, even.
Any final thoughts on this, Matthew? The episode and the series as a whole?
This episode is a great episode. I wouldn't say it's super uncharacteristic of the sense of humor. Rugrats is, for some reason, it was a very important show to me growing up, but it's like the one I've revisited the least. And yet every time I do, I'm always really pleased with, especially the parents stuff. Like I always think the parents have humor that really holds up and really still speaks to me as an adult, even a childless adult. I'm still like an adult who has to like survive and pay bills and stuff. I think that stuff like helps it be better to revisit, because we're always watching SpongeBob and stuff like that, but that we feel like is more for us. But Rugrats, I think, can still isn't just a show for babies, and it's still pretty good. I think the special is fantastic. I'm glad it exists. I'm glad that as a kid I was able to learn about people who did things differently than me, because most cartoons were very unconcerned with providing that service. So I'm glad they did it. I'm the guy who enjoys how Klasky Chupo stuff looks too. So I think this looks great, and I super don't think they should make a new one, especially a live action one.
Oof.
So I think I was a little too mean to their art style. I think it works best for Rugrats, and when they continued that art style on other shows is when it really kind of reached its breaking point for me of like, no, these all look too hideous. It gets too far. But Rugrats works the best with it, and it's more unique than ugly, I would say. As I grow older, I'm pretty sure me and Bob are older than Stu and Dee Dee are in the show, for sure.
We have to be.
And I now appreciate that Rugrats was written on 2 levels by having babies and adults in it. They had adult jokes that went over the babies' heads within the universe that were also meant for the parents watching Rugrats with their children. And now I can get those a lot more. There was, in that Dummy Bears Dinner one, the jokes about like business deals that the Pickles brothers are working on, or jokes about, Phil and Lil's parents. When the mom saw Angelica in the bear outfit, she's like, "You got one for the size of Herbert?" And I was like, "Whoa,
they have a fun relationship."
Yeah, what's going on here? I love jokes like that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's all on Hulu, and I recommend dip into the first 3 seasons if you want to revisit the show. There's some stuff that's fun. It's not as like laugh out loud funny as like SpongeBob or Ren and Stimpy or Rocco, but there's some good writing there, and it's fun to see Klasky Chupo do their own Simpsons Before Duckman, which is a better show.
The movie's great too. That first movie has some real dark moments in it.
Really? Okay. Never seen it.
Tommy almost sacrifices Dill to some monkeys.
Oh my god!
Wow,
it's messed up. Yeah,
until the sniper came in.
I mean, Tommy is right that little brothers ruin everything, and I don't want them around.
They're usurpers. Henry would know.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us, Matthew.
I love my little brothers.
Oh, thanks for joining us, Matthew. Can you please talk about what you're doing? Maybe mention the video that you made about Rugrats Jewish holiday specials.
Yeah, I do a series. Well, first I'm on Twitter at Mr. Matt J, and I do a video series on YouTube called Cartoons 101. And my big relaunch at the beginning of this year was for Passover was the Rugrats, an episode about representation in the Rugrats and about how well they did it. And that show is supported by a Patreon at patreon.com/cartoons101, where I do a weekly podcast, which has been on hiatus. And by the time you hear this, is back with brand new. I interview creators of cartoons that I like Bill Oakley and Evan Dorkin and Scott Gardner. And I just interviewed a friend of mine, Brian Newton, who is one of the coolest guys in the world. He's a director on Rick and Morty.
He did the first Meeseeks episode.
Yeah, he did Meeseeks. He did Interdimensional Cable. He did Morty's Mind Blowers. He did the Vindicators. He's done all the most iconic episodes of the show. And he tells some stories on that podcast where I was like, boy, I'm glad this is behind a paywall. I don't know if you could tell this story. And I think it's like the best podcast I've put on this. I think it's the best episode of this podcast yet. He's an amazing guy with tons of stories. He's been in the industry for so long. We talk about the Klasky Chupo building, I think. At least he and I have talked about it before. So check that out, patreon.com/cartoons101. And maybe by the time you hear this, I don't think so, but maybe I will have launched a new podcast with my friend Steve, who also is an animation professional, called The Deep End, which is it's in your parlance, it's a chronological exploration of Adult Swim. So we'll
talk about this after the recording, Matthew.
Oh no, I breached some contract.
No.
It's all of Adult Swim. Every single show that's ever aired on Adult Swim, we intend to do an episode about season by season. So year 1 of Adult Swim, we're going to talk about episode 1 is season 1 of Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Episode 2, I think, is C-Lab, Harvey Birdman, Home Movies, Cowboy Bebop, all those. And then the next will go into year 2 of Adult Swim. And then all those shows will get season 2 episodes. So we're going to talk the hell out of the history of Adult Swim because for my money, it's the most important thing to me pop culturally in my entire life. Like barring, I don't know, The Simpsons or like Mystery Science Theater or something, like Adult Swim is huge. It is as influential as anything you could name in shaping the modern sense of humor. And then also we'll have a Patreon, which I don't know if this is announced yet. I might as well announce it here. We announced it on our pilot episode that's going to go up first. The Patreon show is going to be the same thing, except episode by episode for The Venture Brothers, which is our favorite show and is one of the deepest shows that's ever existed. So it really deserves its own show. So we're going to do the pilot, episode 1, episode 2, all of them with a bunch of awesome guests. Again, that podcast is called The Deep End. You can follow the Twitter now at Adult Swim Pod and get all the updates on that. But
that sounds great. And I met Steve in LA with you, and he's great too. So I can't wait.
We all went to Fuddruckers. That was fun,
and we had some really good sushi too. But I gotta say, Matthew, between what happened to you and me, I gotta say, people love stealing laptops.
Yeah, right.
And go on Amazon, idiot. They're there. You don't need to break the law.
And it's really making me think like, wow, that's so easy to do. Like, why aren't I stealing laptops all the time?
I'm quitting Patreon, going to the laptop theft business.
And also watch Mitch live at Mitch.live. That's a show that I produce starring Mike Mitchell of the Doughboys. It's a talk show where the host doesn't know what's going to happen. He doesn't know the guests. He doesn't know the jokes. He doesn't know when it's going to happen sometimes. Sometimes that fucks us up. But, it's always great when we pull it off. So check that out.
Yeah, we're big fans of Matthew. Please check out all of his stuff. I can't wait for those podcasts to come out, Matthew. But as for us...
thanks for having me back.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You're always welcome back. But as for us, you can support us and the Talking Simpsons Network if you go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. If you give it the $5 level, you'll get every episode of this podcast a week ahead of time and ad-free. And the same goes for Talking Simpsons. We also have dozens and dozens of bonus podcasts, exclusive series like Talking Critic and Talking Futurama, interviews. So much more is happening on the Patreon, and help support this. We do this full time. We want to make more podcasts for you, and we're having one of our best months ever as of this recording. We can't wait to make more stuff, and we want to meet more goals. So if you want to help us out, go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons and see how much you would like to subscribe at. And we appreciate any amount you can give.
Though at the $10 level, we just launched a new What a Cartoon Movie podcast if you'd like to hear us do the same kind of treatment. But for the Batman Mask of the Phantasm film right in time for its 25th anniversary, you can jump up to the $10 plus level and listen to it right now.
My dad swears that he and I saw that in the theater, which would make it the first movie I ever saw in the theater, but I don't have a single recollection of that.
You would have been 2 or 3 then.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening, folks. We'll see you next week for the Gargoyles episode, The Mirror. We'll see you then.
Santa versus the alien. It's Cynthia and a very Cynthia Christmas.